Yeah, guys. Okay. Good to see you all here. I don't know how many people will stream in. I hope some will. We'll try to have a very, hopefully, interesting for you talk, especially if you're doing some of the, offensive security. We'll see. We'll see where we're going to go. So I'm going to start, obviously, with a little bit of a question. You've got a list of things, list of games you want to play. On top, you've got vulnerability management, governance, risk and compliance. On the bottom, you've got offensive security, and 8-bit game that is global thermonuclear war from the war games. Hands up if you want to play something from the top of the list. All right, hands up if you want to play something from the bottom of the list. Have much more hands risen here, and so you are in the right crowd. And that's the reason I want to talk to you. So the subject of this talk is your team, your red team is missing the point. And who am I? I tend to introduce myself as the Forrest Gump of Scottish cyber. Because just like on this photo, Forrest Gump standing next to the Kennedy, I've been in most of the places where important things happened in Scottish cyber. So, Fede was supposed to be talking to you just, an hour ago. And so it happens that Fede hired me 11 years ago. I worked with him in a company called Kwecka that became ECS Security. We've created the first SOC for one of the UK banks, first cyber SOC for one of the UK banks, together with many other good people there. Then I went on to other banks. I was a person that got the first global Splunk instance into one of the major Scottish banks, the other one of the two. So that's me. What I'm doing now, I'm the head of information security at Heineken. You probably know the brand. You probably don't know we've got about 300 different brands under that name. And why I'm here is because over the years, working in many companies, including KPMG, where I run all the not red teams, all the offensive security for Scotland, I manage the engagements. I never done pen testing myself, but I run all the engagements. I work for many organizations where I was on the receiving end of the engagements. And you know what? I would say 5% of them were good. Most of the time, the engagement was terrible, unfortunately. It's got better, it's getting better. It's getting better through, like Ben said, the community working together, people working together and getting better. So I also, before this talk, talked to a number of CISOs, other CISOs, a number of head of security, and what they say is scary to me. Because one of the statements heard is like, oh, we're just going to do without any pen testers and red teamers now. There is so much trouble with what we're getting right now that we're just going to go the automated route. I'm like, right now, I would be waiting almost for somebody to boo me from the audience and say, come on, you cannot run a red team as an automation. You need intelligence. You need something more than just an automated program to run a red team. But here it is. I spoke to one of the guys leading quite a big team of experts, and he's like, yeah, I can't deal with it anymore. I'm just going to go for robots. So just to make sure I don't say this talk from just one perspective, the perspective of a person who manages engagements and, is on the receiving end of those reports and engagements. I also talked to some of my friends, and that's the power of community. I reached out to those 3 guys last Tuesday, and within, an hour or two, I had, interviews scheduled with them to talk to them about their perception as red teamers. So Aaron here looks a very young guy. He's looking quite young when you see him. He's still quite young, but within 4 years from graduating of the university undergraduate course, he's already a manager at KPMG doing offensive security. He's doing something wrong, right? Not wrong. And actually, that's opposite to some of the other stories. We've got Dan, who is exactly a work we've done before in SecureWorks for a company called DNS that was here in 2009, and Conrad, who I also met through KPMG. There is one more figure I'm going to introduce later, also from the same area, but always question where the person talking to you is taking their sources from. Do they actually know what they're talking about? So the question is, can robots replace the red teamers?
And whenever you see a heading like that in the newspaper, the automatic answer is no. If somebody will be sure of the heading, they will put a question mark at the end. I don't believe robots can replace red teamers. And for everybody here who doesn't exactly know what red teaming is, and also because I believe that whenever you are in a room, you're explaining it, whatever you're talking about, to everybody in the room, including my daughter here. So you're explaining something to the 12-year-old in this case, and that's almost the attention span of the senior executives in any organization I've seen. If you're showing them a pen test report, they will only look at it for about a minute, and it's like, enough, I'm back to my business stuff. So red teaming, for those who don't know, is the stealthy way of testing an organization, making sure that the protocols in place to detect an offender without or adversary within the organization are all right. And how it's different for vulnerability testing? Vulnerability testing, you would have a scheduled test by a machine, and in a red team, you would get to the point that it's a stealth, very sophisticated attack. So let's talk you through a few engagements that I've discussed with my friends, and the engagements I've been on. Some of them are not exactly real. They're made up of a few different stories bunched together, just like a movie on Netflix. But that's hopefully will give you a little bit of a flavor of what we're talking about. So imagine you're in a red team. You're outside this fortress here. That's actually Dubrovnik. You can probably recognize it from the Games of Thrones. But you're outside of this fortress, probably on this motorboat there, armed, you've got plenty of offensive tools, you're ready for the action. You need to get in to the fortress, find the crown jewels, get them out undetected. You're being told that the CISO there is quite tough. You know the team there is ready for you. The blue teamers have been through it plenty of time. They're not afraid of you. You just say, hold my beer. So you go in, and actually, it's like they weren't ready at all. It's an easy scenario. You do some hosting for a day or two. You send a few emails, and in half a day or less, you've got elevated access through some DLL injection because somebody hadn't put codes around the path parameters. And then you're getting to domain admin in 20 minutes because you attack the LAN manager and provide some spoofing on the network. So you've got it. You're there 20 minutes into engagement pretty much. People are paying £50,000 to £100,000 for it, and you've done it within 20 minutes of actually starting to warm up. So you spend another 2 weeks doing something, attacking the domain admin another way. You write a report, and you think, CISO will cry when they see you. And then your report looks like that. Nothing intelligent about it. There is very little information that somebody can gain from it, or actually you're telling somebody that, that's your biggest problem. That's the critical vulnerability. It's the biggest thing you've got there. But you don't understand the playing field. You don't understand this company at all because you only look from it from the outside. But that's almost a good scenario because it took you not that long to get here. But what about the harder scenarios? Again, you're standing outside this fortress and you can't get in. You've been trying phishing campaigns, you tried to go on site and do some physical access to the building to actually get any sort of a basic level access, and you can't get it. You spend 2 weeks to it and only one person clicks something. Finally, you've got this initial access and it moves from there. You spend 2 weeks, so you burned about 50K doing it. So what do? You turn to your best coder in the organization, the best penetration tester, and say, we need something big, we need to show them. We can't just tell them it took so long and we didn't get nothing. So they spent 2 nights rewriting, some of the templates in Cobalt Strike or Metasploit, and then you deploy it silently and it goes in. It goes in quietly. You go and you got everything you want. Actually, it goes so well that you're doing a DC sync. You're syncing all the data from the domain controller to your laptop. And then, also for the good of it, you can get the databases. But what you've done, syncing the DC, You feel like Harry Potter getting the first snitch because you actually have a golden ticket. You can now issue any authentication ticket within the environment. Great, that sounds amazing. And you dump the databases because that's just for a good measure. So you feel like that, you feel like Avengers, your team is ready for the debrief. And you got that. I won't actually play that for you, but you can probably see it online. I'll link to it later. It's, unless you want to do like that clip, I'll get this one if you haven't seen it. Hope it will play. I just didn't know how loud it's going to be. Okay.
Dat lijkt dus de manier die vandaag maatstaf Frans vaststelt.
Mit dem Angriffsverständnis wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Obviously, CISO doesn't believe it. It's like, those guys didn't get anything on me. But the blue team is sweating a little bit. Yeah, if you haven't seen this video, go on YouTube, search, for offensive security or pen test and see, so you will get it. It's a beautiful spoof of that classic movie. But what's happening is you're actually going into the building to go to get the debrief with the blue team. And what's happening, they're not taking you the normal path that you would expect. You're going some dark corridors. You're not going to the normal conference room. What turns out is you're ending up in CISO's incident response rooms. What's happening there? You look at the people there, and there's a lot of tired faces. And it dawns on you. Nobody told them it's a red team. CISO didn't know. Nobody in the team didn't know. You've got some video conference call going on, and you recognize, the email addresses that are shown on the screen. It's one of the EDR companies, CrowdStrike or Microsoft or somebody else. And they look like they want to swear at you, but they only say the adversary wouldn't play that way. It's an unfair game. And again, it dawns on you, CISO would not call a red team. They only do it in the first 100 days of their work. Because, yes, first 100 days they want to show how bad it is, but after that, they don't really want somebody to come and throw everything that they've got at the company. It just doesn't make sense for them. But you laugh it off. You say, I will write a report and show to them how bad they are. You spend 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks to get the report authorized, and finally, your report goes to the CISO. And again, it looks like that, it's patchy, it doesn't really show full picture. You're back to square one. Then what CISO needs to do, they actually need to spend another week writing a report, or actually CISO's team writes a report that the CISO will understand, because your report wasn't that good. And then, the same week, they're writing a report for the execs, because they can't show the execs what you've written. However, the one good thing they say, oh, good that you captured that database. The vendor told us they've got such a good detection on dumping the database, and nobody can do it without them knowing. Now, they're going to have to buy us another tool on their cost, because that's the contracts with those people. But actually, that's the end, not of my talk, but the end of the red team. If that's how the red teams are perceived, you're not going to get a lot of engagement. There's no community there. You go there and actually they want to walk you off the building rather than say, good job. And it's not the feeling you want to have. You want to be encouraged, you want to have those high fives and say, you've done it right, thank you. No, you're not going to get it at that engagement like that. So how do we assure a survival of the red team? How do we do it? What can we do? First of all, when you're starting your engagement, verify the maturity of the blue team. Don't trust what they say. Actually, go speak to the teams, find out what they're doing, how mature they are. Actually, it was quite beautiful. You probably won't read that in here, but when I submitted the idea for that talk at the very beginning of March, a few days later, Rachel had wrote that on Twitter, saying that she will not do an offensive engagement with the company if they're not mature enough. She will come around and help them with the basic processes and so on, but she won't do an offensive engagement. It just doesn't make sense. They're wasting their money, they're burning through their money, and at the end of it, everybody's going to be frustrated and annoyed. And also, don't start from scratch. Don't always start from that phishing and elevating access and everything. Sometimes you will spend 2 weeks and burn through 50K just to get through your initial access. Work with the blue team and assume that certain things can be done. So start at the position when you're already authenticated user and start it from there. Or start from the position where you're a third party that has some access to this company and start from there. Don't assume that every red team needs to start from scratch, that need to start from external positions, from that boat outside the broker. Also, who is the threat actor? Who is that company playing against or defending themselves from? Is it a nation state? Outside of what's happening right now in the world, I think now, nation states don't usually attack companies. Unless we're talking about some very small nation states that are starved of money and they're actually hacking people to get money from ransomware. They do it, but they use community tools. Organized crime, that's probably the best and the biggest one here. That's the guys that actually are after everybody and everybody's money. It's fair enough. Activists, not all organizations agree. I would hope that my organization, for example, I really hope we're trying to do good, we're trying to do green things, we're trying to be actually good people, and actually this protects us to a certain degree from the activists. And I remember guys from Google telling me, okay, what do you do about, I asked them, what do you do about insider threat? That's the last one here. And they say, we're trying to be the good employer. We're trying to listen to people. We're trying to actually do what majority want to do. So we can avoid certain things depending on who's your attacker. But find out who you should be simulating in your red team. So if your red team looks like they're in top, but actually the attacker is a 16-year-old guy somewhere in Oxford that actually needs to Google meme cats, and the guys on the top would write meme cats, your red team is a bit, overpowered compared to what is necessary for that client. And play fair, exactly. Find out what the client needs, what is the maturity, and play fair. You don't want the EDR vendor to say, you know what, we watch hundreds of thousands of logs from the real attacks. Nobody ever moved like those guys. Nobody ever behaved like those guys. Because red teamers have a slightly different step around the environment than the proper adversary. They move slightly different. Obviously, one day somebody may get caught out that they're actually not detecting red teamers, they're detecting the adversaries, but still try to play fair. And also going back to the threat intelligence, for example, and I say that on the bottom there, find out what is the threat intelligence given to the blue team, and sometimes play a scenario exactly to the threat intelligence they've been given. If they've been told that there is a certain way of attacking organizations like theirs, try it, see whether they protected themselves from it. And if they haven't, then actually do something really bad. Okay? Also, never think less of your opponents. They're blue teams. They don't usually speak on conferences often. Now it's a bit more, but they haven't usually spoken conferences, and the reason for it was they couldn't. They had gag orders. They had, they would lose their job. They would speak too much about their jobs. So it's not that they're not intelligent or not that good. They're actually very hot people on the subject, but they can't talk about it with you. They can talk about it with other blue teams. But learn a little bit about their jobs. Do a second line detection, response, or risk management. Learn what it takes. Learn how to speak to the senior management. It's a skill. Offer ride-along red teams and go with in the trenches with the blue teams. And never go a little bit over the board with your findings. A lot of the time you read the findings and it's like, you guys are gonna die, this company is going to cease to exist if this, if you allow an attack like that to go through. And that's not actually the case. Plenty of companies showed it before. The way the companies die from the lack of cash. They don't usually die, even after a huge cyber attack, they don't usually die immediately. They run for a few years, and if their cash flow doesn't improve, that's when they die. But looking at MERS, they had an attack in 2017, here somewhere on the left. Kwecka wiped, 25,000 PCs, 4,000 servers within 10 days. That's what happened to them. They lost 300 millions, recovering that. But they're actually afloat and doing very well in 2022. An attack that cost them 300 millions and wiped pretty much the whole company. They survived. So it's about the cash flow. So don't go over in your findings, be specific. Try to get a business impact. What would be a business impact of an attack that you just carried out? Often people go after domain servers. But in my company, we work in, we've got an OT environment that is totally separate. I don't care if you got domain admin most of the time because you can't get to the other environment. So also agree your findings with the blue team. If you got some findings that don't agree with the other side, guess what? The stakeholders on the top are not going to be there to know what is good and what is bad, no matter how you put in words. They won't understand it. You need to agree your findings with your opponents. And if you don't, then the trust is lost on both sides. People will start trusting you and stop trusting you and stop trusting the blue team. And don't do the DC thing. It's pretty much evil. You can break the environment pretty easily. And actually, in the story earlier, I said, what could have happened if you made a DC sync, left it on your virtual machine, or even worse, left it on a USB drive connected to your laptop because you thought, after each engagement, I'll just have a USB and keep all the data from there. If you made a DC sync, take some databases, put it on a USB that you have it encrypted, and you lose it in the hotel room in Rio, 2 weeks later, that company could be breached or that data could be on the dark web or Reddit, whatever you call it. So make sure that if you do a DC sync, you take some gold tickets, delete it securely after your engagement. Don't keep it in your VMs. Not like, I'll use it one day. No, you don't have a right to use it. If you're going to go for another engagement, you're going to have to start from scratch. That's your job. So, know your audience. When you're writing a report, not like at the university, the exec summary is actually for the exec. It needs to be understood by somebody who's got 2 minutes to read that report. The technical summary is more for the CISO, and finally the body of the report is going to be for everybody else working for the CISO. But there is still the need for the red team sometimes. If the company does not believe that they can be breached, if the CISO is so full of himself saying, nobody gonna get in, that's when you want a red team and shake the whole thing. That's where you want to actually go for it and do something very offensive. In other cases, and actually I got it here, but I won't read it, the definition of a red team I read earlier wasn't full definition. It's actually from the same article, but this one is better. It's a rigorous, challenging plan, policies, systems, and assumptions, but approaching the adversarial approach. That's a much better definition of what a red team is. But what I'm suggesting is, from now on, try to avoid doing red team, especially for any low maturity clients. Just don't do it. Unless you're talking about Netflix or somebody who throws the red teams at themselves every day and actually simulate an adversary there every day. Do it then. But for most of the clients, go for a purple team. Go for those ride-alongs red teams. Go for being in the trenches with the blue team, so we can actually see what's going on. In some of the engagements that I talked about earlier, the problem is you do attack somebody for 2 weeks, you take 2 weeks to report on it, and 4 weeks later, there is no log in the tools that actually show why the alerts did not trigger. So the whole 2 weeks of your work is pretty much wasted because they don't know how to detect you the next time. And that's the full idea why you want to be there. That's why they want the red team, so they know how to detect somebody next time. So long be the red team, but now how do we get hired? Not fired. So I guess I didn't have a coffee this morning yet. Hopefully I'll get one after that. So again, being where I am, I'm very lucky to have hundreds of people applying for jobs that I put online. I'm really very happy about this position. I'm very happy how many people we've got applying for those positions and how many talented people we've got in Scotland. And whenever I get it, most of the CVs, 90% of them, people will be talking about offensive security most. But obviously, I can't offer a job in my organization that is 100% offensive security. It's not what I do. I'm more about defending my organization. So what I try to do is, last time we got the interviews, we got all the CVs and initial interviews done with 3 candidates. And we had 3 face-to-face interviews. And out of the 3, 2 people turned up, very full of themselves, tester guys. It's like, especially one, he was like, yeah, see, I'd never done any proper work, but I had that client there, I'd done a penetration testing for them, but they're useless, they can't defend themselves, anything. Don't talk like that about your clients. Be a nice person, be somebody who is agreeable and you can be easy to talk to you. There is a quite good, maybe not always good, but there's a CISO, it's a CISO podcast. And in that podcast, one of the presenters is always asked, would you hire a brilliant jerk? And the answer, no matter what they do, they usually give him 2 options, hire a brilliant jerk or have something worse taken. Every time he will go for the other option, because once you get somebody who is a little bit annoying into the team, the whole team disappears. The whole team gets a bit like defensive and they're like all standing off to each other a bit, peacocks. And what Tere and Ben wanted to talk about earlier, they have talked about it earlier, you want this community, you want friendly faces, you want to open up and be able to talk like human to human and learn from each other. So last year, who I hired is this guy, Leo. He came, he really focused on offensive. He really wanted to do offensive security. I couldn't initially offer that to him, but he came in very open-minded. He done an internship over 3 months with me. I found some offensive security engagement I could send him on. He had passion for brewing, so I also sent him to our Caledonian brewery and also to the Manchester brewery, that is a bit more automated than that. And he really enjoyed, he learned about both sides of security, not just offensive, also defensive and reporting and actually speaking to senior stakeholders. And from there on, I offered him opportunities to talk to the pen testers I know, so he could learn more about the craft and get the jobs. He got few, actually at the back of the internship, just because he was such a nice and agreeable guy, he had 3 jobs offered to choose from, and he selected one in Switzerland. So, in order to be where you want to be, look at job adverts, look at other people, look where you want to be in 5 years' time. You don't have to look further than that, I would say. Look in 5 years' time who you want to be. Check what is required and get it. And I know that Arnold here probably look at the top of the form. I read his biography and I really recommend you reading his biography. He's a self-made guy. That guy had an idea for himself. He went to in Germany, he was a bodybuilder, of course. Then he made business selling additives for food and things like that. Only then he went to States and he thought he wants to be an actor, and he actually paid for some of those movies himself and went to acting classes. Obviously, he lost the body, but by that time he was governor of California, very good title. He's done some nice red teaming exercises with his fire services 1 year before the massive fires in California that saved them a lot. And finally, from a guy that couldn't speak properly in English about 20 years ago, and you could see him in the movies, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'll be there, or I'll be back, whatever, because he initially was a Hercules, that's a nice thing. If you see him 2 weeks ago, he was speaking to Russians and asked his fellows, and the way he eloquently put everything, you show the journey. If you think that right now, when I graduated from the uni, I could see myself being a little bit closed up. I really focused on technical stuff. I really enjoyed it. I found the technology I liked. I got, packet tracing and understanding packets to the big level. I hadn't seen many people that actually go that way. But then you want to grow and you want to find out where you want to be and have a certain lifestyle. Have a look and don't limit yourself. You can get there. It won't happen in a day, it won't happen in a year, but it will happen in 2-3 years. You will evolve to whoever you want to be. What can help you on the journey? Those 4 books, the ones that are tilted to one side are more about how you perceive the world and how you can influence others. And the one that is to the right is, if you want to discover what drives you and why you're doing certain things the way you do, that's the laws of human nature. But actually, if you want to get on with people, that's a good book. It kind of is recommended to a lot of salesmen, but it's a brilliant book for everybody. It's a brilliant book about understanding what other people want. People want to be called by their name. People want to be understood, their hobbies understood, and somebody who can actually be on the same line. And you never should do it. And in that book, it's a warning, a huge warning. You never do it to sell something to people. You do it because genuinely you like people. You want to link to them. So be open-minded, respect others, experiment as much as you can with technology, but also with people interactions, how you sell something, how you talk about something, how you discuss what you're doing every day. Explore, enjoy, and share. Work with others, have fun. That's everything. That's the end of the talk. I think I've got a few minutes left. I've done it for 30 minutes, and then I've got a few minutes for questions. If you've got any questions, it's a weird talk for questions, but you may have something. Anything? No? Oh.
What's your thoughts on emulating that system?
Emulating them as a group? That's a very good question. I think we probably don't know yet everything, but from some of the released material from Mandian and others, it looked like they pretty much Googled also the tools for the things. They weren't very sophisticated for it, and they hadn't covered the tracks very well. So as I said, I'm not an offensive security person myself, but from my perspective, it would mean that exactly you're not throwing your best coders against the organization. If you want to emulate somebody like them, use what we've done already. Common tools that you can get online, tools that you can get on the black market, tools that you can get somewhere else. Just make sure that they don't have any backdoors or run them in dev environments. What's your thoughts about it? Because it's a two-way conversation. Would you have a suggestion?
I think a 6-hour window to get as far as you can means that blue teams must.
Just, if you try to split it and do it as fast as possible. I think you're right. And a lot of blue teams, I see it finally picking up, but a lot of blue teams comes, Friday afternoon. It's like, okay, I'm on holiday. I'll have a pager, and I sometimes look at some pagers, but I won't look at it until Monday. And what I like about your answer to the question is, I don't believe, and I run a lot of defensive operations, I don't believe anybody should be running their own 100% inside SOC. It's always going to be hybrid, and already it's hybrid, because even when they say it's 100% internal, you say, what about those 5 contractors there? So if you're hiring contractors, you just as well hire a managed security service that sees offensive actions every day, not people that pick up something offensive every 3 months, so they don't have a training, they don't understand what's going on. But that's how I see it, I suppose. I see a question up there.
Yeah, so you've explained about the importance of writing your reporting for executives and for your technical summary.
Yeah.
I actually think the bigger challenge isn't trying to help the blue team, because the blue team are very close to the red teamers.
Right now, yes.
I think
that's only part of it. That's why I would say that people sell red teams, but what you should be selling is part of it where they actually work together. Yes.
Yeah, I think the harder challenge, and this is where I take your advice, is how do you get the network team to listen?
How do you get networking to listen? You give them money. I've got this challenge for some time, and it's, you will find that after a while, the company will cut down the resources, and unfortunately, you're going to get to the point where you're going to have to run a cybersecurity backlog with a pot of money. It's not going to be an improvement project. Or you ask for the money for the next year, but some of it is for planned improvement projects, and some for it is you need to have some ad hoc improvement projects, because the network team, won't do anything that is outside of their budget because they don't have a budget for it. They're not going to hire anybody outside. They don't have a budget for it. Where it should come from is from the security budget, and the security budget should come from the business, and some of it needs to be ad hoc. Unfortunately, some of it needs to be a pot of money that you're ready to spend on an agile way, saying, guys, we just discovered something new, something bad is happening. We don't usually have the guys standing there to fix it, but we've got a pot of money to help you, so we can get this consultant that we know that's been here, last month, and actually he's shit hot and he can do it for us. Let's get him back in. That's my approach.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So what about organisations that have no inclination to spend money on IT or security generally?
That's their choice. Unless they're doing something with personal data. That's not their choice. Even organization doesn't have inclination to spend the money on IT or something, and they're not regulated by GDPR or another thing. What's the worst that's going to happen? It's their commercial data, and assuming we forget about personal data, it's their operation and their personal data. They're not national grid, they don't have a regulator against it. The worst that can happen, they will collapse. And if they collapse, there shouldn't be any monopolies, so there should be another company that could easily pick up the client or pick up similar services. So it's their business choice. That's my view. What about you?
Still struggle with it.
You struggle with it's a painful thing, but if a company doesn't want to spend the money on cybersecurity and they don't have regulated data, if they don't have to do compliance, it's their choice. Because there is a cost to security. There is a cost to managing risk. It will hold you back a little bit. It's basically, if you invest a little bit in security, that can make sure that you actually, when you're gonna reach the top, you're gonna stay on the top. But you're gonna slow you down a little bit because you're gonna have less pounds to invest in you getting to the top. Unless we're talking about, speeding up user journey. Yes, you can invest money in that. And then you can sell that to a company that if you invest in the user journey, make it more secure but faster at the same time, you're gonna become more secure and actually better. So what I do with organizations like that is you dress up, and you don't just dress up, you try to sell security with improvements to the business plan. So you can have, for example, pink identity and say, guys, you can have identity for all of your customers, and you know who they are, you know their security, you know they can connect, you know their journey, you know everything that you need to know as a business, but also you know that you can secure their connections. You know that you can securely authenticate them. So that's the only approach I see in the scenario where the business doesn't really want to understand that cyber is important. But also, the shock exercises that we just talked about, I think that's a part of the red team where actually you can go and shoot them a little bit, That's why you need a red team. If somebody is like, nothing gonna happen to us, we don't care about it. Yeah, that's when you may need a red team to show them what is bad. Or you may just, a tabletop exercise for the board. That's sometimes enough. That's sometimes enough to get your buy-in. Make a little tabletop exercise. Get somebody who has been in the trenches, but also a senior executive, because they need to match the seniority of the people in the room, and get them to talk to the board and tell them this is a story. That's the story of TSB, for example. Pretty much a local bank. This wasn't a breach, but they told it to themselves. But that's the story what happened after they had a huge, disaster. And that's what personal attack, it had on the execs. Because, unfortunately, most of the organization, unless we're talking about one founder and a small organization, and most of the organization, you need to sell and inform the individual as much as the business. Business is one thing, but you've also got individual players in the board, in the management team. What's their aspirations? Do they want to be in this place in 2 years' time, 5 years' time? Because if they're only thinking short term, they're probably not going to spend for cyber. But if they're thinking, I'm going to be here in 5 years, that's the stakeholders you want to talk to. that stakeholders that is going to be there in 5 years' time because they want the company to prosper. And the chances that your company will have an attack in 5 years, I would say are close to 100%. That's my view. Any more questions? I'm not sure I've got time for them. 5 minutes potential. So I'll get my mic off the.
Right, if there's no more questions, let's. No, I don't. This will be it. Okay.